All right. I just shared on my Instagram that I am going to share what blood chemistry panel markers we want to look at, and that the word your lab results are normal. The word normal is not ideal. It's not optimal. So we want to get blood chemistry panel done from our doctors, ideally twice a year, but insurance just covers once a year, and they only cover like half the markers we really want to know. And I'm not a doctor, but I'm an FDN practitioner, and I'm more of a curious person and a health optimizer. And I don't want to be normal. I want to be optimal. So, what does that mean? Let's look at our ranges as FDN practitioners, help you be your best self as you age. So, if we look up blood chemistry testing, here's the video sharing my screen of what I do when I get blood work done. Here we go. If you don't have access to a lot of the blood tests that we want to see as functional medicine, preventative, not waiting till you're getting disease, chronic diseases, sickness. We can look at, say, Ulta labs, direct labs, DHA labs, and find popular panels. So baseline biomarkers advanced, $243.96. Anemia, there's all sorts of ones. What I look at on here is look at what your doctor will do, and then let's come shopping for the blood markers, the rest of them we want to look at. So here's baseline comprehensive. There's always a 20% off coupon that comes up on Alt Labs, but check out the markers, what's included. Now, they do not have insulin on this panel, but they do have reverse T3, total T3, T3 uptake, free T3, total, and food. So I really like to know free T4, free T3, and the TSH and uric acid and all these other markers. They do not include insulin. So you can see what are the baseline markers, what they're looking for, all these different markers. CRP's on here, vitamin D, A1C, GGT for liver health. So we get a good glimpse, but there's still not everything in here. So I would go on to here. We also want to look at some other functional labs. Insulin. Okay, I've showed you this before in other videos, but there's insulin, $26. And then we want to look at, maybe you want a panel. And then we want to look at APOB. How much does that cost? $35.95. Plus, there's usually, again, 20% off. So there's panels with it, 5 key heart tests you're probably not getting. What would those be? APOA and B, homocysteine, CRP. So this is actually a great one to get done. So I should add that to a panel, but you're $178. So essential. We don't want to wait until we're sick. So when your doctor says your lab results are normal, that that doesn't work for me. We want to be health optimizers and prevent getting diseases. As Peter talks about in Medicine 3.0, don't wait until you have problems. We want to get this information. So I was just devastated trying to get insurance to cover my continuous glucose monitor that I got a prescription from Wild Health Precision Medicine. I've been in their program for a year getting my lab tests, and we'll go through that. But my reports from Wild Health, I'm prone to type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance if you look at my labs. And the doctor or the insurance company said, you don't have type 2 diabetes, so we will not cover a CGM for you. You have to pay for it yourself. Doesn't matter if I'm prone to it, but they want to wait till I have diabetes instead of using a CGM as a prevention. So you can go to Levels, you can go to NutriSense and get your own CGM to monitor your glucose, or use a finger prick as we've done with Keto Mojo. And some other companies are great out there I've talked to. Why is APOB such a big thing? You can read Peter Attia's book, but it's often overwhelming for most people. This is a great blog post from Levels. APOB is a protein that is attached to the disease-causing cholesterol particles in your bloodstream. 1 protein per cholesterol-containing particle. Measuring APOB Tells us the number of cholesterol carrying particles in your bloodstream, which is the most important risk factor for heart disease. Other tests as LDL-C, LDL, you know it as, measures the concentration of cholesterol, which can be misleading. Recent studies have shown that ApoB testing is a much more accurate measure of heart disease than the test as LDL and frequently non-HDL-C tests. Despite higher accuracy, major medical groups still view ApoB as secondary to other cholesterol, and doctors are not familiar with it. If you have high ApoB, the best way to lower it are cutting saturated fat while increasing fiber omega-3s, exercise, and resistance training. That is information here on the levels video and article. So what is ApoB test? Again, we can go over here to Alta Labs because your doctor will say, I won't test it. You can get this great package here, 5 key heart test panels you're probably not getting. And you can ask for this and go to, I think LabCorp will do it. And then it measures this ApoB and ApoA, which is the HDL. So it's not saying cholesterol is bad or good. LDL, that's kind of what we don't want to say. We want to look at what type of LDL. A high ApoB can be a strong indicator of cardiovascular risk. So shouldn't we know our ApoB rather than just relying on total cholesterol and LDL markers in HDL? So again, you can read this information on the Levels blog post about how this may be accurate marker and better than cholesterol. And to understand how ApoB predicts cardiovascular risk, we want to zoom out so we can zoom in and understanding the role of cholesterol. This is what I want to do a series of cholesterol podcasts because people often comment when I share, here's my eggs for breakfast and some bacon. They think, oh, I'm going to get high cholesterol and cholesterol is going to cause heart disease. That is pretty, no offense, but that's really outdated. And the book I read in 2013, I did Nutritional Therapy Association. So I read The Big Fat Surprise by, oh my gosh, drawing a blank. I need my brain pills today. What's her name? But it's an amazing book, huge book on the false information we got on cholesterol and heart disease. Now, Big Fat Surprise, great book to read. Every cell in your body can make its own cholesterol, but it's produced in the largest quantities by the intestines, which absorb and repackage some cholesterol from dietary sources, and the liver. So these organs can export cholesterol to other cells via the bloodstream. But this step presents the body with a challenge. Cholesterol is hydrophobic. It does not disperse easily in the blood, instead clumps together as oil in water. The solution particle, called a lipoprotein, is a molecule that encases the cholesterol in a hydrophilic shell so it can travel through the blood in small discrete parcels. So there's many different kinds of lipoprotein particles and change into other as triglycerides are offloaded. At the beginning of this chain, very low density lipoprotein molecule, and so you can go on. So read this article. I'm not going to obviously read it all, but because it goes on and on, but great information. Why might you get this tested for your ApoB? All the information in here. So again, you can read this. It's a great motivation to ask your doctor, will you please get this done? They say, you know, it won't covered by insurance, $670, but I just showed you. You can go over here, Alta Labs. This whole package is only $178. Or if we back up, we want to look at ApoB, it is $35.95, so $36. I would think after you read this article, you'd want to get your ApoB tested twice a year. Now, if we look at markers in the blood chemistry, we want to look as FDN practitioners. This is my cheat sheet, optimal range in each lab. So I'll go through, and if your marker or my own, I'll show my results, are higher or lower than the optimal range, that is a clue towards something else. So we're looking at putting the missing pieces of a puzzle together. Now, I can't show you all this because this is my training manual, but if your cholesterol is high or if it's low, lower is not better. Oxidative stress, heavy metals, liver bile function, there's many reasons. So when I'm doing someone's lab test assessment, again, I'm not a doctor, but I can look at this sheet and say, okay, what's going on? Now, here's my results. I've had my test results from last year, 23, 24, and 25. And my glucose, if you look at my genetics, we can go look through. I've shared this a few times already, so I won't dive into it. But my Wild Health Precision Medicine report and carb related labs and my lipid labs, and really looking at the whole picture. So I'm more prone to type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance. So my glucose tends to run a little higher whenever I do testing. What is that a clue towards? If it's a little bit higher than 75 to 86, again, functional, not normal ranges. So we're looking at just a slight increase. That could be B1, thiamine deficiency, fatty liver, liver congestion, adrenals, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. So we're looking at signs and symptoms and correlating this information together. Do we see patterns? Here's other markers. Again, this column here is I just got done. 3.8, that's in range, 12, 6.5. So what do I see? A little bit higher, a lot higher. This is EGFR. I have to watch my kidney function. 18 is a little bit higher, the bun to creatine ratio. So I need to pay attention to maybe this one, creatinine is low, related to muscle atrophy. Lack of physical activity, well, that's not my issue. Inadequate dietary protein or impaired digestion. So here's highlight, this is something I need to pay attention to. Inadequate dietary protein impaired. I'm getting my protein, so I would say, hey, I might have impaired digestion, which is why I try to make sure I take my digest enzymes frequently with each meal of solid food, especially with protein. Now, so this is kind of what I do look at KFI higher. This column is on the far right. This is my functional range. This is my current range. And so I go through and I look at patterns. Now, if my zinc is lower right now, it's in optimal range. So alkaline phosphatase, that's a sign if it's below 70, low zinc deficiency. So I could start to see patterns if I have inadequate protein digestion, low zinc deficiency. Do I have the protein marker? That's 17.3. So that's in range. So I need to look at multiple markers, not treat lab results, treat the person, and correlate this information with my nutritional therapy assessment. Another one I like to look at is AST. If it's higher, mine's back to 20. That's in that 10 to 20 range, but that's going to show me some information over here. This far right are clues. They're clues. It's not saying this is what's happening. Obviously, there's a big, huge list. So my ALT is pretty high last time, 36. It's down to 26. So if I'm seeing this constantly high, maybe get retested every 3 to 4 months, is it signs if I have dysfunction in my liver? Fatty liver. I don't drink much, so it's not alcoholism. I don't have bile tract obstruction that I know of. I don't have any signs and symptoms. Celiac, Crohn's, colitis, I don't have any of those. So again, I'm looking at symptoms. So is it I have dysfunction in my liver? Do we see that again? So again, I'm investigating. I'm putting the missing pieces of the puzzle together. Now, I think I just had protein malabsorption breaking down. Maybe I start to look at this patterns here, dysfunction in the liver, dysfunction in the liver. Then I'm at the lipid panel. My cholesterol tends to be a little higher the last couple of years. I need to look at my genetics and what that is related to. So if we look at my genetic reports, my methylation, that was better. Let's see. If I scroll down, this report is really long, but you'll see at the end, exercise recovery, inflammation, sleep, sleep. And then we've got cognitive decline, which we are going to talk a lot about. The microbiome, we can correlate that data on here if I did the microbiome test, which I need. But looking at these markers, cardiovascular disease, dementia, insulin resistance, inflammation. What are your genetic risks? So I have genetics, very high cardiovascular disease risk. So when I look at my cholesterol markers, I want to make sure I don't have any red flags. So I want to keep my eyes on here. What are my triglycerides? They're down at 50. So you think, here's a good example. Lower is better. Lower cholesterol, lower triglycerides. But if we go into what is low marker, so low LDLs, for example, let's go here. There might be LDLs, something infections, inflammation, free radical damage. So if I have low triglycerides, whoops, sorry, don't look at this. If I look low triglycerides, liver bile dysfunction, hyperthyroidism, no, I have super low thyroid, autoimmune, adrenal issues. So again, I can narrow it down. Well, that's correlated to liver bile. I don't have high thyroid. So when I'm looking at genetics, look at my current labs, LDL, HDL, triglycerides, LP little a, LDLP, the particle size, APOB 72. So this is what I would do with blood chemistry panel and then say, hey, here's my practitioner being a health investigator. Do I see continuous red flags of liver bile dysfunction? We need to go back to that. LDL is back down, but it was elevated. I kind of alternated experimenting. Do I need to drop having bacon all the time, maybe once a week? So is it really food or is it something else? Is it inflammation inside causing dysfunction? Because we've got fatty liver, oxidative stress. So it could be, well, not related to food. I'm not doing refined carbohydrates, but oxidative stress, low thyroid, H. pylori. So LDL cholesterol being higher here could be some higher levels that I don't want of H. pylori, which will impact my stomach, which will impact the organ in the stomach, impact protein digestion and whatnot. So anyways, that's what I do as an FDN practitioner. We're looking at if this is higher or lower, what does that correlate with which labs to do? Do we see any blood chemistry patterns? And then when I put that into lab tests with genetics, I can look at all these markers and look at my risk with genetics and then look at all this together. And then estradiol, homocysteine, CRP, looking at risk for dementia, I think is something really need to be concerned about as we get older. So that's my just short video. This is what I do. This is my own test. So I'm not disclosing any information. This is a good clue that, hey, we should be running a stool test to tell, do I have any intestinal parasites? I should be doing a food sensitivity test. I don't have asthma issues, but sometimes when I exercise, you might feel some exercise induced asthma. So it might be something to do with my microbiome. So I would be running a microbiome test on this client, which is myself, and then organic acids test and food sensitivity test, depending on the budget. So that's, $1,000. Liver dysfunction, intestinal parasites. So you see these patterns. This one's just a little bit higher, but the eosinophils seem to be running high ongoing. So what food and environmental allergy sensitivities do I have? Do I have any parasites? That is summary. And then again, look at thyroid, not just TSH, primary hypothyroidism patterns, high TSH, low total T4, low T3, low free T4. And it's common to see lipid markers elevated with low thyroid. So go back, my cholesterol is high. LDL was high, but it came down a little bit. It's not because I'm eating bacon. It's because of possibly this low thyroid. Free T4 is 1.21. It should be 1.4 to 1.8. Taking my iodine. Listen to Dr. Elizabeth Bright's interview. Free T3, this is the active form, the bioactive. I'm at 2.5 and we want at 3.4. So I have very slow metabolism, struggling to lose weight. Do I just take a thyroid support more? What else is going? Do I have Hashimoto's? So I would want to get my antibodies are not high, so keeping my eye on there. And then other tests to look at what is driving the ratio of the free T3 and the reverse T3, the breaks, and what T3 is accelerator and reverse T3 are the brakes. Check your adrenals, do a Dutch test, organic acids test. Do I have bacteria, yeast markers, detoxification? So we want an organic acids test, a micronutrient test would be great. Iodine, I can do home. I have iodine, you just put on your skin, see how long it dissolves. So this is how we correlate. We don't treat lab results. I'm not just going to say, hey, your A1C is 5.6. I want it down here. You're showing signs of prediabetes. Let's take a supplement for that, berberine. Well, that's great, but it still doesn't solve what's driving it up. I'm not eating a high sugar diet. I have genetics that are going to push me towards that side of prediabetes. But what else is triggering blood sugar being higher? Remember, chronic stress increases cortisol, increases glucose more often, and that's going to increase insulin without any relationship to what I'm eating. Chronic stress impacts everything. Checking on your hormones, checking on the CRP level, especially with my genetics and my dad passing away and had a heart attack and kidney issues and cancer, that I need to keep this CRP level down under 1. And then I want to look at my markers. Now, a lot of times B12 is really high in people. Higher is not better. It's more we can pee it out, but why is it not getting into the cells is another clue. Looking at folate, note iron levels. I need to keep that homocysteine level in mark that went down 8.5. It's down 7.2. So I'm taking the B because B vitamins are usually driving that homocysteine up higher. So that's better. So yeah, that's just what I'm also looking at. Ferritin. I'm often anemic. I was in 2 years ago, 36 on my ferritin. So very anemic. So now I'm back up to normal. And that's important because iron levels, if they're low, that's related to thyroid needs iron. So looking at the whole picture. So if you're curious, let me know. Part of my health assessment package, if you just want to get that done, looking at the optimal ranges in functional medicine. Here's a cheat sheet. What we want to look at, which markers. I send this to my clients. Ask your doctor, get this done. And then we want to look at what is your level, not normal. Normal is not good. Normal is not where you want to be. That's based on sick, unhealthy people, is my interpretation. So getting these individual markers, and then again, APOB would be beneficial for most of you. So you can look at Function Smart or Function Health levels. Are all doing blood chemistry panel. You can get that done, but there's great information there. Wild Health, Precision Medicine, you can talk to them and look at, say, here's my disease risk for insulin resistance. I have these FTO genes. So I have obesity genes, I say. So what are those? You can look at the very end of the report and you can get your averages, telomere test I did, and longevity markers, but we can look at all these genes involved in longevity and then figure out, or look at more the ones that are 2 alleles and that I'm more risk for. So that is my report. I was going to show you the summary that tells you all the different genetic SNPs that Wild Health uses, glutathione, GSTP, the PPARG, PP, what am I saying? PEPGC, 1 alpha, we've talked about that in the mitochondria, fat, carbohydrate metabolism, conversion of fast to slow twitch muscle fibers. I was just saying the PPAR, that one is a master regulator of fat, carb, and amino acid metabolism found in brown adipose tissue. How do we get brown adipose tissue? Cold plunges. And in the liver, kidney, skeletal muscle, heart. So PPAR, central role in the process of ketogenesis, ketone bodies from the oxidation of fat, typically occurs during carbohydrate restriction and fasting. Activate the PPAR gene, promotes the uptake and utilization of breaking fats down by activating the genes involved in fatty acid transport, blah, blah, blah. So it's really important to know all these different genetic SNPs and how to work with your blood chemistry and put it all together on how to break fat down, improve insulin sensitivity, and what genes we need to look at if you have slower or faster genes. As with Seeking Health And Dr. Ben Lynch has taught us that too in his book. So just a little information. I'm really tired of people saying, oh, my doctor said my lab results are normal. We don't want to be normal. You want to be your best self, right? So take ownership of your own health. Tell your doctor, I want to be optimal, not normal. Normal's not good enough. And give them this information and help them be a better doctor. If they're passionate about helping people thrive as they age, not wait till you're sick and have chronic disease. Let's get on top of it. So read more about APOB in Peter Attia's book, Outlive. You can get Cliff Notes version or watch his videos, and Levels Health has APOB as well. And remember, not treating lab results. We want to look at the whole picture and ideally take that blood chemistry panel, a stool test, and organic acids test and food sensitivity test and look at the whole picture and then treat the client, treat the patient, treat you from a holistic approach. We use the DRESS protocol as FDN practitioners and look at your hidden sources of chronic stress, and then we work on those external stressors. So if you have questions, head to my website, debbiepotts.net, and we can set up a discovery call to learn more about your goals and how you want to be showing up to life when you are 80 years old, 90 years old. All right. Thanks for listening.